You see, all three of these identities came to bear when we explored the issue of Israel. We talked about the politics briefly, thankfully not extensively. We learned that we need to dialogue where we disagree. What we have to fear is silence, not conversation. It's been simmering and it's going to blow. We talked about reclaiming language as well as the land. We have a Mishkan. We have a tent of meeting. It's the tent of the Knesset, of the parliament. We have a sense of Kedusha, a sense of distinctiveness, holiness, dedication that doesn't have the supernatural connotations of the holy. We have a third temple. It's the Israel Museum, built on a hill facing the Holy Temple, the Holy Hill in Jerusalem. It was the best presentation at the first ordination event, was a discussion of how this is the new temple. And what is the heart of this new temple, this Israel Museum? It is a hechal. It is the word for temple, but it's hechal hasefer. It is the temple of the book of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the earliest version of the Bible, because we can reclaim that as well. The earliest manuscripts is where we make our temple. And in fact, the Israel Museum is not, it's a marvelous articulation of a humanistic approach to Jewish life. It's not a temple of Israel. It's not a museum of Israel. It's called the Israel Museum because it's in Israel, but it's a museum of world culture. It's not only Jewish material, it's world culture housed in Israel. But the context makes a difference. The story around the artifact makes a difference. The setting in which it's placed makes a difference. And so when we rewrite the stories in our views, when we take the Haggadah and put Moses back in and put Miriam back into the Haggadah, that is our tradition of writing the story in our views. We don't wait for permission to do weddings. We don't wait for permission to claim our dignity. We create the reality we want to see. Now, these three identities coexist. Again, they are all true. And they are in a creative tension with each other. As an individual, I have many identities. I'm white. I'm male. I'm from my generation. I'm married. I have 2 children. I'm an alumnus of the University of Michigan. I'm Jewish. I'm a humanist. And different identities are important at different times. On a Saturday afternoon, perhaps being a U of M alumnus is more important than being Jewish. I want to watch that football game on TV. But if it's on Yom Kippur, being Jewish is more important. But I'm all of them at once. I'm all of these identities at once, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. And we have to own that reality. We are secular, and we are humanists, and we are Jews. There are times that these values conflict. Our secular values may conflict with our Jewish tradition or with the experience of religion in the state of Israel, which is not a separation of synagogue and state. Our humanist commitments may conflict with our Jewish ethnic loyalty. Our secular lifestyle might conflict with a humanist response to human needs. After all, if we feel a need for community, that's not the individual standing up for himself or herself. I loved a line that Greg used in an interview, I think it was in New York Magazine. He said, "Reason and science are all well and good, but they can't visit you in the hospital." We can take all the comfort we want from our ideas and our philosophy and our sense of independence, but in the end we need community. But if our secularism is so opposed to any kind of thing that even smells like religion, then we're not meeting the human needs that a positive humanism tries to meet. Those meanings of purpose, meaning, community, connection. We may need the religious model of a chavurah, a congregation, perhaps even a rabbi. Now, there are times that these identities inform each other beautifully. I need to give you a new word, but I'm going to define it for you. It's called intertextuality. The idea of intertextuality is that you write something new, but it's always seen in relation to something old. You write a poem that draws on Abraham and the binding of Isaac. And this intertextuality means the dialogue is in 2 directions, because my poem is informed by the old text. But when you read the old text the next time, you'll think about my poem. There's marvelous modern midrash that was written by Judith Plasko, who is a feminist Jewish theologian, who asks all the right questions. I don't always agree with her answers. As with Mordechai Kaplan and Reconstructionism, he asks all the right questions, even if I don't agree with his answers. What Plaskow does in this story is called Applesauce. It's a story of Eve and Lilith, the first wife of Adam and the second wife of Adam, Lilith coming first, according to the traditional Midrash. But what Plaskow does in Applesauce is retell the story from a feminist perspective. In fact, Eve and Lilith meet, and they share their stories. And they read Betty Friedan. No, they don't do that. But they share their stories. They have this encounter. They cry, and they meet again and again. They become sisters and powerful. And the last line of the story is, and Adam and God were expectant and afraid the day that Eve and Lilith came back to the garden together. That the feminist independence and the domestic identity, that these can transform the world. But what Plaskow's story did was it transformed the Bible too. Because generations of people, generations of feminists, women, liberal thinkers who have read Plaskow's story will never read the original Genesis story the same way again. Just as those who look at traditional Jewish life but have experienced a humanistic Jewish congregation will never look at it the same way again. And vice versa. We've had people who have been members of our congregations for years, and they move to a new place, they decide they'll try a new synagogue. But once you've gone secular humanist, you can't go back. Because you say to yourself, oh, that's why. Oh, this again? More and more? What about those intellectually inspiring and emotionally resonant experiences I used to have? I can't give this up. I mean, it's a little bit cynical of us, but we get you addicted. We get you addicted to a meaningful service, and then you have to come back. You see, we've transformed how you look at tradition. You just can't look at it the same way. Our new creativity has transformed the old. And so our secular identity informs our humanist identity. And our humanist identity informs our Jewish identity. And our Jewish identity informs how we are secular and how we are humanists. Our humanism will not be the same as a Unitarian humanism because of who we are. The context in which that story is told. For us, it is that much more beautiful because it speaks to many sides of who we are. You see, creative tension is what makes progress possible. It is the strength of dialogue, the power of conversation, the importance of learning from each other and working together. Human needs are a function of human survival. If we need food, we use it for energy. If we need sleep, we use it for recovery. If we need community, it helps us survive a cruel and unpredictable universe. If we need traditions, they help us find meaning and purpose in our historical and ethnic and genetic transcendence through the folkways of our people and our culture. It gives us a sense of meaning and roots. If we need meaning and purpose inspire us to slog through the hard times of fear and death and loss so that we can again celebrate with a sense of integrity. We can mourn the loss of Rabbi Sherwin Wine at one colloquium, and we can ordain rabbis without him, but in his tradition, at the next. It is not secular or humanist or Jew. We are secular and humanist and Jew, challenging conventions in all directions. We want Jewish values a humanist can celebrate, that inspire us and inspire us in coming generations. As Sivan said, Judaism is our tradition. Our values are what we choose. I want to give you a Jewish value that we celebrate. It's the Jewish value behind Ira Gershwin's "It Ain't Necessarily So." The things that you're liable to read in the Bible, they ain't necessarily so. It's the Jewish value behind Spinoza's stand for truth, to refuse to be bribed into saying what was popular, what was desired by the community. Despite his condemnation, despite his excommunication, he stood on this Jewish value. It's the Jewish value behind Sherwin's courageous stand to demand his Judaism and his humanism too. There is nothing more Jewish than chutzpah, and nothing more secular or humanistic either.